In the industrial heart of Pine Ridge, what began as a routine harassment at a bus station transformed into an extraordinary tale of justice and redemption when the notorious Steel Serpents motorcycle gang thought they'd found an easy target in a lone woman waiting for her bus. They never expected to cross paths with Captain Sarah Winters, a highly trained military intelligence officer whose combat experience would not only stop their intimidation, but ultimately dismantle their entire criminal empire. This is the incredible story of how one decorated soldier exposed a web of corruption reaching from street corners to City Hall, proving that sometimes the most important battles for freedom aren't fought on foreign soil, but right here on American streets. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from. And if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. The late afternoon sun cast long shadows over Pine Ridge's worn streets as Captain Sarah Winters adjusted her military pack. Her brown eyes scanned the industrial landscape, taking in the fading brick buildings and weathered storefronts that lined Main Street. 6 years in military intelligence had taught her to notice everything: the group of teenagers loitering near the convenience store, the security cameras above the bank, the subtle tension in the shoulders of shopkeepers as they prepared to close for the day. Sarah's boots clicked against the cracked sidewalk as she made her way toward Eddie's diner. The smell of coffee and grilled onions wafted through the air, mixing with the metallic scent of the nearby factory. Through the window she could see Eddie Martinez himself, gray-haired and wearing his usual white apron, arguing with someone at the counter. The man Eddie was arguing with wore a leather cut with a serpent emblem. His massive frame dwarfed Eddie's, and even from outside, Sarah could read the threat in his body language. 2 more bikers flanked him, their hands resting too casually near their waistbands. Sarah pushed open the door, the bell's cheerful chime contrasting sharply with the tension inside. Conversations died as heads turned toward her. Eddie's face showed recognition, then worry. "Look," Eddie was saying, "I've always paid on time. The rate was set last month." The large biker leaned forward. "Rates change, old man. Times are tough. Either you pay the new price or—" He stopped as Sarah approached the counter, his eyes narrowing as he assessed her. "Evening, Eddie," Sarah said calmly, her voice carrying the quiet authority that came from years of command. "Everything okay here?" "Well, if it isn't a soldier girl," the biker sneered, turning to face her fully. "This is private business, sweetheart. Why don't you order your coffee and mind your own?" Sarah met his gaze steadily. "When you threaten good people in my hometown, it becomes my business." She kept her posture relaxed but ready, her training automatically cataloging potential threats and escape routes. The biker's face darkened. "You've got no idea who you're dealing with." "Actually, I do," Sarah replied. "Snake tattoo on your neck, Steel Serpents cut, enforcer stance. You're Drake Morrison, dishonorable discharge from the Army 10 years ago. Now you run protection rackets for the Avalon Syndicate." Drake's expression flickered with surprise before hardening into anger. "Been doing your homework, have you? Then you know what happens to people who stick their noses where they don't belong." "I know what happens to people who think intimidation makes them untouchable," Sarah countered. "Walk away, Drake. There's only 2 ways this ends, and you won't like either of them." Drake laughed, but there was an edge to it. "Boys, looks like the soldier needs a lesson in respect." His hands curled into fists as his companions moved to flank Sarah. The diner had gone completely silent. Sarah could feel the weight of everyone's stares, the collective held breath of witnesses about to see something they'd rather not. She kept her eyes on Drake, but her awareness extended to every movement, every subtle shift in the room. "Last chance," Sarah said quietly. "Walk away." Drake's response was a sudden lunge, his massive fist swinging toward Sarah's face. But she wasn't there anymore. Years of combat training took over as she stepped inside his reach, using his own momentum to send him crashing into the counter. Coffee cups shattered on the floor. The other 2 bikers moved in, but Sarah was already moving. A precise strike to the first man's solar plexus doubled him over. She caught the second man's wild punch and turned it into an arm lock, using his weight to throw him into his gasping companion. Drake was up again, rage contorting his features. He reached behind his back and Sarah caught the glint of metal. "That's enough!" Eddie's voice rang out, accompanied by the distinctive sound of a shotgun being racked. Drake froze, his hand still behind his back. Eddie stood behind the counter, the shotgun aimed steadily at the biker's chest. "Get out of my diner," Eddie said firmly. "All of you." For a moment, nobody moved. Then Drake slowly brought his empty hand forward, his face a mask of barely contained fury. "This isn't over," he growled at Sarah. "Not by a long shot." "Actually, it is," Sarah replied. "Because now I'm interested in exactly what you're protecting here in Pine Ridge. And trust me, Drake, you don't want me interested in your business." The bikers backed toward the door, helping their dazed companion. Drake pointed at Sarah. "You just made the biggest mistake of your life, soldier girl. Nobody crosses the steel serpents and walks away." "I'm not nobody," Sarah said calmly, "and you're about to learn exactly what that means." After they left, Eddie lowered the shotgun with trembling hands. "Sarah, you don't know what you just started. These men, they're connected. They've got half the town in their pocket." Sarah watched through the window as the bikers roared away on their motorcycles. "I know exactly what I started, Eddie." She turned to face him, her expression determined. "And it's about time somebody did." Eddie wiped his hands nervously on his apron as he poured Sarah a cup of coffee. The diner had emptied quickly after the confrontation, leaving them alone in the fluorescent-lit space. "Those men," he said, his voice low. "They're not just some local gang. The Steel Serpents, they've got reach. Real reach." Sarah wrapped her hands around the warm mug, her eyes focused on the street outside. "Tell me about them, Eddie. Everything you know." "Started about 2 years ago," Eddie began, glancing at the door. "They showed up offering protection. Some businesses refused at first, but then accidents started happening. Broken windows, mysterious fires, inventory disappearing. People got the message pretty quick." Sarah nodded, processing the information. "And the local police?" Eddie's bitter laugh said everything. "Sheriff Wilson? He looks the other way, claims there's never enough evidence to make arrests stick, but everyone knows he's on their payroll." The bell above the door chimed and both Sarah and Eddie tensed, but it was Officer Jenny Parker who walked in, her police uniform crisp, her expression concerned. "Eddie," she nodded, then turned to Sarah. "Captain Winters, word travels fast in Pine Ridge. Heard you had some trouble with Drake Morrison." "Jenny Parker," Sarah said, a hint of recognition in her voice. "3rd Battalion, right? Camp Leatherneck?" Jenny smiled briefly. "Good memory, Captain. Listen, we need to talk. Not here, though." She glanced meaningfully at the security camera in the corner. Sarah stood, leaving a generous tip on the counter. "Eddie, thank you for the coffee. And be careful. They might come back." "I've got my shotgun," Eddie said grimly. "And now I've got a reason to use it." Outside, the evening had settled over Pine Ridge, the streetlights casting pools of yellow light on the cracked sidewalks. Jenny led Sarah to her patrol car, parked around the corner. "Get in," Jenny said, checking their surroundings. "We've got about 20 minutes before I'm expected to radio in." Once inside, Jenny spoke quickly. "What happened at the diner? You stirred up a hornet's nest, Captain. The Steel Serpents aren't just running protection rackets. They're the muscle for something much bigger. We're talking drugs, weapons, human trafficking." Sarah's expression hardened. "How deep does it go?" "City Hall, county offices, police department, they've got people everywhere. Been trying to build a case for months but can't trust anyone locally." Jenny paused, then added quietly, "That's why the FBI sent me." Sarah's eyebrows rose slightly. "You're undercover." Jenny nodded. "Agent Jenny Parker, FBI Organized Crime Division. Been embedded here for 8 months. The Steel Serpents are just the tip of the iceberg. They work for an organization called the Avalon Syndicate. The syndicate's been expanding their operation across 3 states, using small towns like Pine Ridge as distribution hubs. And now I've painted a target on my back," Sarah said, understanding dawning. "Actually," Jenny smiled, "you might have just given us the break we've been waiting for. Drake Morrison's careful, controlled, but you got under his skin. When people like that get angry, they make mistakes. A motorcycle engine roared in the distance and both women instinctively tensed. They'll be watching you now, Jenny warned. Where are you staying? Bus station, got a ticket for the 9 p.m. to Memphis. Jenny shook her head. Change of plans, you're not leaving town just yet. I've got a safe house, old factory oversight office on the east side. Off the books. Drake's people won't know about it. Sarah considered for a moment. You're right, I started something here, might as well see it through. It's not just that, Jenny said, starting the car. We've been trying to get someone inside their operation for months, someone with the right background, the right skills. Then you show up and manage to embarrass their leader in public? They'll be obsessed with making an example of you. You want to use that, Sarah realized, draw them out. Exactly, but it's your call, Captain, this isn't your fight. Sarah watched the familiar streets of her hometown slide past the window, remembering the fear in Eddie's eyes, the resignation of the other customers in the diner. Actually, it is. I spent 6 years fighting threats overseas. Maybe it's time to deal with the ones right here at home. They drove in silence for a few minutes before Jenny spoke again. There's a CIA agent in town too, Marcus Rodriguez. He's been tracking the syndicate's international connections. If you're in, he'll want to meet. CIA, FBI, and military intelligence, Sarah mused. Quite a party. And the Steel Serpents have no idea. Jenny smiled grimly. That's going to change, though. Drake's probably calling his bosses right now, trying to explain how one woman humiliated his crew in public. A black SUV appeared in the rearview mirror, its headlights bright. Jenny checked the mirror. We've got a tail. 2 bikes behind the SUV. They move fast, Sarah observed, her body tensing for action. Hold on, Jenny said, suddenly turning down a narrow alley. Let's see how well they know these streets. The patrol car accelerated, tires squealing as Jenny navigated the maze of back alleys and industrial lots. The SUV tried to follow, but the motorcycles had to fall back, the narrow passages too treacherous at high speed. Jenny took another sharp turn, then another, before pulling into a loading dock hidden from the street. She killed the engine and lights, and they sat in darkness, listening to the sounds of their pursuers racing past. Welcome to the investigation, Captain, Jenny said quietly. Still want in? Sarah's response was interrupted by her phone buzzing. A text message from an unknown number. Got your file from Army Intelligence. Impressive record. Meeting tonight, midnight. Come alone to Container 47 Riverport. We should talk about your future in Pine Ridge. Drake doesn't waste time, Sarah said, showing Jenny the message. It's a trap, Jenny stated flatly. Obviously, Sarah agreed. Question is, what are we going to do about it? Jenny started the car again, checking the streets were clear. First, we get you to the safe house. Then we call Rodriguez. If Drake wants to spring his trap tonight, we might as well spring ours too. As they drove through the darkening streets of Pine Ridge, Sarah felt the familiar tension she'd known in combat zones, the calm before the storm, the moments before an operation kicked into high gear. But this time, the battlefield wasn't some distant desert or mountain range. It was right here, in the streets where she'd grown up. And somehow, that made it matter even more. The safe house turned out to be an old foreman's office perched above an abandoned textile mill. Agent Marcus Rodriguez was waiting for them, his dark suit incongruous against the industrial decay. He stood as they entered, his keen eyes assessing Sarah. Captain Winters, he said, extending his hand. That was quite a show at Eddie's diner, not exactly keeping a low profile. Wasn't trying to, Sarah replied, shaking his hand. Sometimes the best way to expose a snake is to step on its tail. Jenny secured the door while Rodriguez spread photos across a dusty desk. The Steel Serpents are the muscle, but this is who they work for. He pointed to a photograph of a well-dressed man leaving a private jet. James Avalon, former investment banker turned criminal mastermind, built the syndicate from the ground up over the last decade. Sarah studied the photo. He doesn't look like your typical crime boss. That's exactly why he's been so successful, Rodriguez explained. He runs it like a corporation, every operation compartmentalized, every player disposable. The Steel Serpents are just one of many enforcement groups he employs. But they're sloppy, Jenny added, joining them at the desk. Drake's been getting aggressive, drawing attention. Avalon won't like that. Sarah picked up another photo showing Drake meeting with a man in an expensive suit. Who's this? Mayor Richard Collins, Rodriguez said grimly. Our biggest problem. He's Avalon's man in Pine Ridge, keeps the official channels clean. Any evidence we gather mysteriously disappears once it hits City Hall. And now they want me at Container 47 tonight, Sarah mused, studying the port layout photos. Classic ambush setup. Rodriguez nodded. It's a kill box. One way in, one way out. They'll have bikes blocking both ends of the container row. Probably snipers on the stacked containers. Good thing we're not going in blind, Jenny said, pulling out her phone. She pulled up a map of the port. I've got 3 reliable officers who aren't on the take. They can provide backup, but we'll need to keep them in the dark about the bigger operation. Sarah traced the route with her finger. We don't need to win this fight. We just need to make it look good enough to keep them interested. She looked up at Rodriguez. You said Avalon treats everyone as disposable. What happens when his enforcers fail? He sends in cleaners, Rodriguez answered. Professional hitmen to eliminate the liability. And that's our real target, Sarah concluded. We're not trying to catch Drake. We want him to fail so spectacularly that Avalon has to show his hand. Jenny smiled grimly, using their own hierarchy against them. I like it. Rodriguez checked his watch. We've got 4 hours until the meeting. Drake will have men watching the bus station, expecting you to show up for your ride out of town. Then let's give them something to watch, Sarah said. She outlined her plan quickly, pointing out positions on the port map. As she spoke, Rodriguez's expression shifted from skepticism to grudging approval. It's risky, he said when she finished. A lot could go wrong. Everything's risky, Sarah countered. But right now they're expecting a lone soldier who's in over her head. Let's use that. The next few hours were a blur of preparation. Jenny made calls to her trusted officers, setting up their positions under the guise of a routine patrol. Rodriguez worked his contacts, ensuring there would be no interference from other agencies. At 11:30 p.m., Sarah walked openly to the bus station, her military pack over her shoulder. She could feel eyes watching her from the shadows, probably reporting her every move to Drake. The station was nearly empty, just a few late-night travelers dozing on plastic seats. She bought a coffee from the vending machine, checking the reflections in the station's windows. 2 men in leather cuts sat in a car across the street. Another lounged near the station's entrance, poorly concealing a bulge under his jacket. At 11:45, she started walking toward the port. The men followed, not bothering to hide their presence. In their minds, they were herding her right where they wanted her. The port loomed ahead, a maze of stacked containers and cargo equipment. The sound of waves lapping against the docks mixed with the distant hum of the city. Sarah walked steadily, her boots crunching on gravel, her senses hyper-alert. Container 47 was easy to spot, the only one with dim light leaking from its seams. As she approached, motorcycle engines rumbled to life behind her. Right on schedule. That's far enough, Drake's voice called out. He emerged from behind the container, flanked by 4 men, all armed, all trying to look tough. I have to admit, I didn't think you'd actually come. Sarah kept her hands visible, playing her role. Didn't have much choice. Your men made it clear the bus wasn't an option. Drake smirked. Smart girl. Unfortunately, being smart isn't going to help you now. You disrespected the Steel Serpents in front of the whole town. That can't go unanswered. Is that what this is about? Sarah asked, letting contempt creep into her voice. Your bruised ego? Drake's smirk vanished. This is about sending a message. Nobody crosses us. Nobody. More bikes appeared, blocking the exit behind her. Sarah counted quickly. 12 men total, plus whatever backup they had hidden in the shadows. About what they'd expected. You know what I learned in the military, Drake? Sarah said calmly. The guy who talks about sending messages usually isn't the one in charge. He's just the errand boy, trying to prove himself to his real bosses. Drake's face contorted with rage. Kill her! He spat. The night exploded into chaos. Sarah sat in Eddie's diner the next morning, her body aching from the previous night's fight. The morning sunlight streamed through the windows, creating a deceptively peaceful atmosphere. Eddie placed a fresh cup of coffee in front of her, his hands still shaking slightly. "They're saying 6 of Drake's men are in the hospital," he said quietly. "And Drake himself hasn't been seen since last night." "He's running scared," Sarah replied, sipping her coffee. "Exactly as planned." The bell above the door chimed and Rodriguez walked in, looking impeccable despite the early hour. He slid into the booth across from Sarah, declining Eddie's offer of coffee with a wave. "No, our friends at the syndicate made some interesting calls last night," he said, keeping his voice low. "Avalon's not happy. Drake's failure is drawing exactly the kind of attention they don't want." "Any word on the cleaners?" Rodriguez nodded grimly. 2 teams. First one's already in town. Professional hitmen, ex-military. They're not just coming for Drake. They're here to clean up everyone involved, including you. Sarah's phone buzzed. A message from Jenny. "Mayor called emergency meeting. City council chambers. 1 hour." "They're moving faster than we expected," Sarah mused. "The mayor must be worried." "He should be," Rodriguez replied. "Last night wasn't just about Drake. We got photos of 3 council members meeting with the Steel Serpents last week. The mayor's whole network is starting to unravel." The diner's door opened again. A group of construction workers entered, their boots muddy, their faces tired. But Sarah noticed how they moved. Too coordinated, too aware. Their eyes scanned the diner with professional precision. "First cleanup team," she murmured to Rodriguez. "Right on schedule." Rodriguez didn't turn around. 4 by the door, probably 2 more watching outside. "Think they'll try something here?" "No. Too public. They're just letting you know they're watching." Sarah met the lead man's gaze directly. He gave her a slight nod, professional courtesy between killers. Then they left, leaving their coffee untouched. "They'll wait for a better opportunity," Rodriguez said. "Probably try to catch you alone." "Let them try," Sarah replied. "Meanwhile, we need to deal with the mayor. He'll be destroying evidence as we speak." Jenny's patrol car pulled up outside the diner. She walked in quickly, her uniform pristine, but her expression worried. "We've got a problem. State police just rolled into town. Mayor's claiming jurisdictional authority over last night's incident." "He's trying to take control of the investigation," Rodriguez realized. "Push out any officers he doesn't own." Sarah stood, leaving money for the coffee. "Then let's not give him the chance. Jenny, get your trusted officers and meet us at City Hall. Rodriguez, time to put those CIA resources to work." They stepped outside into the brightening day. The street was busy now, people hurrying to work, trying to maintain the illusion of normalcy. But Sarah could feel the tension in the air, the sense that something was about to break. A black SUV drove past slowly, its windows tinted. Sarah caught a glimpse of the driver. Another cleaner, another warning. The game was escalating. "Our window's closing," she told Rodriguez as they walked to his car. "Once those cleanup teams really start moving, this whole thing could unravel." "Or it could force Avalon himself to show up," Rodriguez countered. "If enough of his people fail, he might decide to handle it personally." "That's a big if," Sarah said. "And a lot of bodies between here and there." Rodriguez unlocked his car but paused before getting in. "You know, when Jenny first suggested bringing you in on this, I thought it was too risky. But now I'm starting to think you're exactly what this operation needed." "Why's that?" "Because you understand something Avalon doesn't. This isn't just about taking down a criminal empire. It's about protecting your hometown. That makes you more dangerous than any cleaner he can send." They drove to City Hall in silence, both aware that the next few hours would determine whether their plan succeeded or failed catastrophically. The cleaners would be watching, waiting for their moment. The mayor would be mobilizing every corrupt official he could find. But Sarah had faced worse odds in combat zones across the world. At least here she knew what she was fighting for. Every storefront she passed, every familiar face on the street. This was what really mattered. Not some abstract mission in a foreign land, but protecting the place and people she called home. As they pulled up to City Hall, Sarah noticed more out-of-place vehicles. Black SUVs, unmarked sedans, men in suits trying too hard to look inconspicuous. The cleanup teams were setting up their own operation, probably planning to hit multiple targets at once. "Ready?" Rodriguez asked, parking the car. Sarah checked her weapon hidden beneath her jacket. "Born ready. Let's go rattle the mayor's cage." The steps of City Hall loomed before them, a symbol of authority now corrupted by greed and criminal influence. But that was about to change. One way or another, Pine Ridge would never be the same after today. City Hall's marble floors echoed with tension as Sarah and Rodriguez walked into the council chambers. The room was already packed, council members shifting nervously in their seats, uniformed officers along the walls, and Mayor Collins at the center, his expensive suit a sharp contrast to his pale, sweating face. "Captain Winters," the mayor said, his voice carrying forced cheerfulness, "I heard about your excitement at the port last night. Quite a mess you've made." "Interesting choice of words, Mr. Mayor," Sarah replied, remaining standing while Rodriguez took a seat in the back. "Most people would call stopping armed criminals a public service." The mayor's smile tightened. "Nevertheless, this is a local police matter now. State authorities are already en route. Your involvement is no longer required." Jenny Parker stood up from her seat near the front. "With all due respect, Mr. Mayor, this became more than a local matter when we found evidence of organized crime involvement." "Evidence?" The mayor laughed. "A few bikers causing trouble? Hardly worth the state's time." Sarah pulled out her phone, playing an audio recording. Drake's voice filled the chamber. "The mayor wants his cut increased to 30%. All operations go through City Hall now." The color drained from Collins's face. Council members exchanged worried glances. "That recording is inadmissible," the mayor sputtered. "Illegal surveillance." "We're not in court, Mr. Mayor," Sarah cut him off. "But this recording and others like it are already in the hands of federal authorities, along with photographs, financial records, and witness statements." A commotion outside drew everyone's attention. Through the chamber windows, they could see black SUVs pulling up, men in tactical gear deploying with military precision. "The cleanup teams," Rodriguez muttered to Sarah. "They're moving early." The mayor stood abruptly. "This meeting is adjourned. Captain Winters, I'm placing you under arrest for interference with—" The chamber doors burst open. 4 men in suits entered, weapons drawn. "Everybody down!" one shouted. But Sarah was already moving. She flipped the heavy wooden table in front of her, creating cover as the first shots rang out. Jenny and her trusted officers reacted instantly, returning fire while civilians screamed and scrambled for safety. Rodriguez pulled 2 council members behind a pillar as bullets chipped the marble. "So much for waiting for a better opportunity," he shouted to Sarah. Sarah spotted one of the hitmen targeting Jenny. She launched herself forward, tackling him just as he fired. They crashed through a window together, glass shattering around them as they landed on the decorative awning below. The hitman was good. His elbow caught Sarah's jaw as they grappled, stars exploding in her vision. But she was better. A quick twist, a sharp strike to his throat, and he went limp. Inside, the firefight intensified. Sarah climbed back through the broken window to see the mayor trying to escape through a side door. 2 more hitmen lay motionless on the floor, while Jenny had the 4th pinned down behind an overturned desk. "Rodriguez," Sarah called out. "The mayor." But Rodriguez was busy. More cleaners had entered through the back, engaging him in close-quarters combat. His CIA training showed as he held his own against 2 attackers, but he couldn't pursue Collins. Sarah sprinted after the mayor, ignoring the pain from her earlier fall. She caught up to him in the building's east wing, grabbing his expensive suit jacket and spinning him around. "It's over," she said firmly. "You don't understand," Collins gasped, genuine fear in his eyes. "They'll kill me. Avalon doesn't tolerate failure." "Then help us stop him," Sarah urged. "We can protect you." The mayor's response was cut short by the sound of breaking glass. More cleaners rappelled through the windows, their movements precise and coordinated. "Too late," Collins whispered, then broke free of Sarah's grip and ran. Sarah found herself facing 3 professional killers, all armed, all focused entirely on her. She could hear more fighting from the council chambers. Knew Jenny and Rodriguez were probably overwhelmed. One of the cleaners stepped forward, removing his tactical mask. Sarah recognized him from intelligence briefings. Marcus Vale, ex-Delta Force, now Avalon's top enforcer. "Captain Winters," he said professionally, "you've caused quite a problem. Mr. Avalon sends his regards." "Tell him he should deliver them personally," Sarah replied, keeping her stance ready. Vale almost smiled. "That's not how this works. You understand? Just business." "Funny," Sarah said. "I was about to say the same thing." The fight that followed was unlike anything the halls of Pine Ridge City Hall had ever seen. 3 elite killers against 1 highly trained intelligence officer, their combat skills turning the marble corridor into a deadly arena. Vale was as good as his reputation. His strikes were precise, his technique flawless. But Sarah had something he didn't, a reason to win that went beyond money or professional pride. The sound of sirens grew closer as Sarah fought for her life, knowing that every second she kept these cleaners occupied was another second for Jenny and Rodriguez to handle the situation in the council chambers. And somewhere in all this chaos, Mayor Collins was still running, carrying with him the evidence they needed to bring down not just the Steel Serpents, but the entire Avalon Syndicate. The war for Pine Ridge was far from over. In fact, it was just beginning. Vale's fist missed Sarah's head by inches as she ducked, the marble wall cracking where he struck. She countered with a series of rapid strikes, targeting weak points in his professional stance. The other 2 cleaners circled, looking for openings. "You're better than I expected," Vale admitted, blocking her attacks. "But you're still outnumbered." A gunshot rang out and one of the cleaners dropped. Jenny stood at the end of the corridor, her service weapon steady. "Maybe not as outnumbered as you think." Vale's expression didn't change, but his next attacks came faster, more desperate. He knew the situation was deteriorating. Sarah caught his arm during a strike, used his momentum to slam him into the wall. The remaining cleaner rushed forward, but Jenny's next shot dropped him too. "The mayor?" Jenny asked, keeping her weapon trained on Vale. "Ran," Sarah replied, maintaining her hold on Vale, probably heading for his private exit. Vale suddenly went limp in Sarah's grip, a veteran's trick to break free. But Sarah had seen it before. She adjusted her hold, swept his legs, and drove him hard into the floor. Vale's head hit the marble with a sickening crack, and he stopped moving. "Rodriguez?" Sarah asked, quickly checking Vale's pulse, still alive but unconscious. "Secured the council chambers," Jenny reported. 3 cleaners down, 2 in custody. But we've got another problem. State police just arrived, and they're not ours. Sarah could hear the commotion from outside growing. "The mayor's evidence is our priority. Everything else is secondary." They moved quickly through the building's east wing, following the route to the mayor's private exit. The sound of a car engine revving caught their attention. Through a window, they saw Collins climbing into a black sedan. 2 more cleaners provided cover, firing at the building to keep anyone from pursuing. "He's getting away," Jenny said, frustration in her voice. But Sarah was smiling. "No, he's doing exactly what we want. Rodriguez?" Her phone crackled. "In position. Tracker's active. He's heading east on Marshall Street." The plan was working. They'd known the mayor would run. It's why they'd let him. The real target wasn't Collins or the cleaners. It was wherever he was running to. "All units," Jenny spoke into her radio. "Stand down, let him go. Repeat, do not pursue." Outside, the situation was chaos. State police were establishing a perimeter, ambulances were arriving, and news vans were already setting up. The morning sun illuminated the shattered windows of City Hall, glass glittering on the steps like diamonds. Eddie Martinez pushed through the crowd, his face worried. "Sarah, are you all right? I heard the shooting." "I'm fine, Eddie," Sarah assured him. "But I need your help. The diner. Can we use it?" Eddie nodded without hesitation. "Whatever you need." 20 minutes later, Sarah, Jenny, and Rodriguez sat in Eddie's closed diner, monitoring the mayor's movement through the tracker Rodriguez had planted. "He's heading to the old airfield," Rodriguez reported, studying his laptop. "Private plane registered to a shell company. Classic extraction plan." "And Avalon?" Sarah asked. Just got confirmation he's flying in personally. This mess is too big for proxies now. Jenny checked her weapon. So we've got the mayor running to Avalon and Avalon coming to clean up his operation. All we need is... The diner's door burst open. Drake Morrison stumbled in, blood seeping through his leather cut, his face a mask of desperation. I want to make a deal, he gasped. Sarah, Jenny, and Rodriguez exchanged looks. Everything was falling into place. Sit down, Sarah said calmly. Tell us everything. Drake collapsed into a booth, his tough guy facade completely shattered. Avalon's going to kill everyone. The mayor, the Steel Serpents, anyone who knows anything. He's bringing in some serious hardware, military-grade stuff. Why? Jenny pressed. What's so important here in Pine Ridge? Drake laughed bitterly. It's not just Pine Ridge, this town's a test run. Avalon's got deals with criminal organizations in 30 cities. If his system works here, taking over local government, controlling law enforcement, he rolls it out everywhere. Sarah leaned forward. And that's why he's coming himself, to make sure nothing connects back to the larger operation. You don't understand, Drake said, real fear in his voice. Avalon's not just coming to clean up. He's bringing an army, professional mercenaries, former special forces. They're going to hit every location simultaneously. Police station, city hall, anywhere evidence might be stored. Rodriguez's laptop beeped. Mayor's reached the airfield and... We've got incoming. Multiple vehicles, heavily armed. Sarah stood, checking her weapon. How long? 20 minutes, maybe less. Then we better get moving, Sarah said. Time to end this. Drake looked up, confusion on his face. End it? Lady, you're not listening. This isn't some small-town gang you're dealing with. These are professional killers. Sarah's expression hardened. So am I, and unlike them, I'm fighting for something worth dying for. She turned to Jenny and Rodriguez. You know what to do, just like we planned. As they moved to leave, Eddie stepped forward from behind the counter, shotgun in hand. I'm coming too. Sarah started to protest, but Eddie cut her off. This is my town too. Been waiting 20 years for someone to take a stand. I'm not sitting this one out. More civilians were gathering outside the diner. Shop owners, veterans, ordinary people tired of living under the syndicate's shadow. They'd seen the fighting at City Hall. They knew change was coming. Sarah looked at them through the window and made her decision. All right, listen up. This isn't going to be easy. But today we take back our town. The final battle for Pine Ridge was about to begin. The old airfield stretched out before them, its cracked runway bathed in the midday sun. Sarah, Jenny, and Rodriguez crouched behind abandoned fuel tanks, watching as more vehicles arrived. Black SUVs and armored vans formed a protective circle around a sleek private jet that had just landed. That's a lot of firepower, Jenny whispered, counting through her binoculars. At least 30 mercenaries, military-grade weapons. They're not trying to hide anymore. Sarah watched as Mayor Collins hurried across the tarmac toward the jet. A tall man in an expensive suit emerged, James Avalon himself. Even from this distance, his authority was obvious in how everyone deferred to him. Remember, Sarah said quietly, we need hard evidence. Confession, documents, anything that proves the wider conspiracy. Rodriguez checked his phone. Eddie and the others are in position. Local news crews too. Anonymous tip about a major drug bust. Once this starts, everything will be public. A convoy of motorcycles roared up to the airfield, the remaining Steel Serpents, summoned by their boss. Drake stood nervously beside Sarah, his earlier bravado completely gone. Avalon's going to kill them all, he muttered, clean slate. Not if we move fast enough, Sarah replied. She keyed her radio. All units stand by. Wait for my signal. Through their binoculars, they could see Avalon berating the mayor, his gestures angry. Collins seemed to shrink with each word. The Steel Serpents were ordered to line up, facing Avalon like soldiers at inspection. Here it comes, Rodriguez warned. Avalon's mercenaries suddenly raised their weapons, aiming at the bikers. This was it. The moment Avalon would eliminate all loose ends. Now, Sarah commanded. The chaos that erupted was precisely orchestrated. Jenny's trusted officers emerged from hidden positions, sirens blaring. News vans appeared at the airfield entrance, cameras rolling. And most importantly, dozens of Pine Ridge citizens showed up. Shopkeepers, veterans, ordinary people tired of living in fear. Avalon's mercenaries hesitated, caught off guard by the civilian presence and cameras. That moment of hesitation was all Sarah needed. She moved with military precision, targeting the mercenaries' command structure. Jenny and Rodriguez coordinated their officers, boxing in the confused gunmen. The Steel Serpents, realizing they'd been marked for death, turned on their former employer. "Federal agents," Rodriguez shouted, his voice carrying across the tarmac. "Drop your weapons." Some mercenaries did. Others opened fire, but their shots went wide, disrupted by the chaos. Sarah caught glimpses of the action through the smoke and confusion. Eddie organizing civilians to block escape routes, news cameras capturing everything, Jenny's officers maintaining their positions. Avalon himself stood shocked, watching his careful plan dissolve. He turned to run back to his jet, but found his path blocked by angry Steel Serpents. "You were going to kill us," one of them growled, "after everything we did for you." Sarah fought her way through the melee, taking down mercenaries with practiced efficiency. She could see Mayor Collins trying to slip away in the confusion. "Jenny," she called out, "the mayor." Jenny moved to intercept Collins, but 3 mercenaries blocked her path. Sarah changed direction, engaging the mercenaries to clear Jenny's way. The fight was intense, close-quarters combat against trained killers, but Sarah had trained for exactly this. Rodriguez's voice cut through the chaos. "Avalon's making a break for it." Through the smoke, Sarah saw Avalon running toward a secondary vehicle, a sleek sports car hidden behind the hangars. He was carrying a briefcase, probably containing evidence they desperately needed. "Cover me!" she shouted to Jenny, then sprinted after him. Avalon saw her coming. He turned, pulling a pistol from his jacket. His first shot missed wide. His second would have hit if Sarah hadn't ducked behind a fuel drum. "You're quite impressive, Captain Winters," Avalon called out, his voice surprisingly calm. "Military intelligence, wasn't it? I could use someone with your skills." "Not interested in job offers," Sarah replied, using his voice to track his position. "No? Think bigger than this small town. I've got operations across the country, connections in every major city. Why fight it?" Sarah moved silently around the fuel drum. "Because some things matter more than money." "Ah, yes, principles," Avalon said mockingly. "Tell me, how many lives are your principles worth? I've got armed teams moving into position across Pine Ridge right now. One word from me and—" His monologue was cut short as Sarah emerged behind him, striking precisely at his gun hand. The weapon clattered away, but Avalon wasn't helpless. He fought with the skill of someone who'd trained alongside his mercenaries. Their battle was brief but intense. Avalon landed several solid hits, but Sarah had fought through worse. She weathered his attacks, waited for his defense to open up, then struck with devastating efficiency. Avalon went down hard, the briefcase falling open, documents scattered across the tarmac, contracts, bank statements, evidence of his entire operation. "It's over," Sarah said, keeping him pinned as Rodriguez ran up with handcuffs. Avalon laughed through bloody teeth. "You think this changes anything? There will always be another syndicate, another operation. This is just business." Sarah pulled him up roughly. "No, this is justice." Around them, the battle was ending. Mercenaries surrendered, faced with overwhelming numbers and cameras recording their every move. The Steel Serpents, led by a chastened Drake, were helping Jenny's officers round up stragglers. But Sarah knew Avalon was right about one thing. This wasn't over. His organization was vast, with roots in cities across the country. Pine Ridge was just the beginning, and somehow that felt exactly right. The sun was setting over Pine Ridge as the last police transport left the airfield. Sarah watched them go, her body aching from the day's battles, but her mind sharp and focused. The evidence scattered from Avalon's briefcase had already revealed more than they'd hoped. Detailed records of operations in multiple cities, corrupt officials on payrolls, and intricate money laundering schemes. "You were right," Rodriguez said, joining her with a thick file in his hands. "This goes way beyond Pine Ridge. We're looking at connections to at least 12 major cities, possibly more." Jenny approached, her uniform dusty from the fight, but her expression satisfied. "State police just confirmed. They're finding weapons caches exactly where Drake said they would be. Military-grade stuff, enough to arm a small army." "Because that's exactly what they were planning," Sarah replied, watching as forensics teams combed the area. Pine Ridge wasn't just another small town to control. It was their prototype, their test run for something bigger. Eddie's pickup truck pulled up, loaded with volunteers who'd help secure the perimeter. The old diner owner stepped out, his shotgun still in hand. "Town's talking about nothing else," he reported. "People are coming out of their homes sharing stories about the syndicate's protection rackets. It's like a dam breaking." Sarah nodded, understanding the significance. Fear had kept people silent, isolated. But seeing their neighbors stand up, seeing justice finally served, it changed everything. "We've got another problem, though," Rodriguez cut in, his voice low. "These documents mention something called Phase 2. Multiple references to a date next week, locations marked in other cities. Whatever Avalon was planning, it's still in motion." Sarah studied the map Rodriguez handed her, noting the marked cities. "They'll have contingency plans. Avalon's arrest won't stop the operation. It might even accelerate it." "What are you thinking?" Jenny asked, recognizing the look in Sarah's eyes. "I'm thinking Pine Ridge was just the beginning. These other cities, they're all like us, small enough to control but strategically placed. Perfect staging grounds for something bigger." A black SUV pulled up and 2 senior FBI agents stepped out. They headed straight for Rodriguez, their expressions serious. "They'll want to take over," Rodriguez said quietly to Sarah. "Standard procedure. File reports, process evidence, wait for the bureaucracy to grind forward." "While Avalon's organization moves ahead with Phase 2, Sarah finished. "How long before they can mobilize a coordinated response?" "Weeks minimum, maybe months." Sarah watched as more federal vehicles arrived, their lights painting the darkening sky in red and blue. This was how it usually went. Local problem solved, federal agencies step in, case closed. But something bigger was coming, and they didn't have weeks to wait. Eddie seemed to read her thoughts. "You're not leaving, are you?" "Can't," Sarah replied. "Not yet. Whatever's coming next week, it makes Pine Ridge look like a rehearsal. And now we might be the only ones who know enough to stop it." Jenny checked her phone, frowning at a message. "Getting reports of unusual activity in 3 of the marked cities. Vehicle convoys, weapons shipments, money movements. It's already starting." Rodriguez glanced at the approaching FBI agents, then back to Sarah. "What's the play here, Captain?" Sarah straightened. Decision made. "You deal with the feds. Get them what they need, but keep the Phase 2 intel quiet for now. Jenny, I need everything you have on local contacts in those marked cities. Police, military, anyone we can trust." "And you?" Eddie asked. "I'm going to make some calls. There are people who owe me favors. Special forces operators, intelligence assets. People who can move fast and quiet." "You're building a team," Rodriguez realized. Sarah nodded. "Avalon's organization spent years setting up their operation. We've got 6 days to tear it down, city by city, piece by piece." "It's impossible," Jenny said, but her tone was more excited than discouraged. "Impossible?" Sarah allowed herself a small smile. "We just took down their prototype operation with a bunch of local cops and angry shopkeepers. Imagine what we can do with a proper team." The FBI agents were almost upon them. Rodriguez quickly gathered the Phase 2 documents, hiding them in his jacket. "You know this is completely off-book," he warned Sarah. "No official support, no backup." "Sometimes that's how the most important battles are fought," she replied. As the federal agents began their official takeover of the scene, Sarah watched the sun disappear behind Pine Ridge's modest skyline. In 6 days, Avalon's organization would launch their master plan, thinking their prototype operation's failure was contained. They had no idea what was coming, because Sarah had learned something important in Pine Ridge. Sometimes the greatest victories don't come from overwhelming force or perfect plans. They come from good people standing together, fighting for something bigger than themselves. And she was about to prove it all over again. The basement of Eddie's diner had been transformed into an improvised command center. Maps covered the walls, computers hummed with data, and a team of unlikely warriors gathered around a makeshift conference table. "Let's go over what we know," Sarah said, pointing to the marked cities on the largest map. "Avalon's organization is moving personnel and equipment into these locations. Each one follows the Pine Ridge pattern: small city, strategic location, compromised local government." Marcus Chen, a former Navy SEAL Sarah had served with in Baghdad, studied the patterns. They're creating a network. Each city becomes a secure staging area for something bigger. "But what's the end game?" asked Lisa Torres, an ex-CIA operative who'd answered Sarah's call. "This level of organization, this much firepower, they're not just running drugs or protection rackets." Jenny entered the basement carrying fresh intelligence. "Just got word from my contact in River City. Their mayor suddenly canceled all appointments for next week. Sound familiar?" "Just like Collins did before everything went down here," Rodriguez confirmed. He'd officially taken vacation time to join Sarah's unauthorized operation. "We've got 4 days left," Sarah reminded them. "Whatever Phase 2 is, it starts then. All these cities, simultaneously." The basement door opened and Eddie came down with coffee and sandwiches. Despite his age, he'd proven invaluable. His diner was the perfect cover for their operation, and his connections with local veterans had provided crucial support. "Got something you need to see," Eddie said, handing Sarah a tablet. "My nephew works at the port. Sent me these pictures an hour ago." The images showed cargo containers being loaded with sophisticated electronic equipment. "That's military-grade communications gear," Marcus noted. "Enough to coordinate operations across multiple states." "They're building their own secure network," Lisa realized. "Once it's operational, they can run everything off the grid. No way to track or intercept." Sarah's phone buzzed. A message from Drake. The former Steel Serpents leader had proved surprisingly helpful since turning on Avalon. "Convoy spotted heading toward Carson City. Heavy security. Definitely syndicate." "Carson City's not on our map," Jenny pointed out. "No," Sarah agreed, "but it's perfectly positioned between these 3 marked locations. They're adapting, changing the plan since Pine Ridge fell." Rodriguez spread out financial documents they'd recovered. "Look at these transfers. They're moving massive amounts of money, but it's not going to their usual accounts. It's all being converted to digital currency." "They're preparing to go dark," Lisa said. "Once Phase 2 starts, they'll be completely self-contained. Their own communications, their own money, their own enforcement." "A shadow government," Sarah concluded. "Not just controlling these cities, but creating an entirely parallel system of power. And once it's in place..." "They can expand anywhere," Marcus finished. "No law enforcement could touch them." The room fell silent as the magnitude of what they were facing sank in. This wasn't just about stopping a criminal organization. It was about preventing the creation of an autonomous criminal state hidden within America's borders. Sarah stood, her decision made. "We need to split up. Hit multiple locations simultaneously, just like they're planning to do. Disrupt their preparations before they can get everything in place." "That's a huge risk," Rodriguez warned. "We're already operating without official support. Split up, and we lose whatever advantage our coordination gives us." "Sometimes you have to break the rules to protect what matters," Sarah countered. She turned to her assembled team. "Every person in this room has fought for this country in one way or another. But the threat isn't always obvious. Sometimes it wears expensive suits instead of enemy uniforms. Sometimes the most dangerous weapons aren't guns or bombs, but corruption and fear." She pointed to the map, to all the communities about to become unwitting pawns in Avalon's scheme. "These are our cities, our people. If we don't stop this now, everything we've ever fought for gets sold to the highest bidder." One by one, heads nodded around the table. They'd all seen enough in their careers to recognize when something had to be done, regardless of official channels or proper procedures. 4 teams, Sarah continued. Marcus, you take River City. Lisa, Carson City. Rodriguez, handle the financial angle. See if you can disrupt their funding. Jenny and I will coordinate from here and deal with any local complications. What about me? Eddie asked quietly. Sarah smiled. Keep the coffee coming, Eddie, and maybe get ready to expand your diner. Something tells me Pine Ridge is about to become a very popular location for federal law enforcement. As the teams began their preparations, Sarah took a final look at the map. In 4 days, either they'd stop the largest criminal takeover in American history, or they'd witness the birth of something that could destroy everything they'd sworn to protect. The real war was about to begin. Sarah's phone lit up with urgent messages as she monitored the operations from Eddie's basement. Marcus was reporting heavy resistance in River City, Lisa had infiltrated a syndicate meeting in Carson City, and Rodriguez was tracking a massive digital currency transfer that could blow the whole operation wide open. Jenny, what's the status on that communications gear? Sarah asked, studying the live feeds on their monitors. Port Authority just tried to inspect the containers, 2 officers hospitalized. Syndicate's not even pretending to play nice anymore. Jenny pulled up surveillance footage showing heavily armed men guarding the shipments. Sarah's tactical mind processed the escalating situation. They know we're on to phase 2. They're accelerating the timeline. Her phone buzzed again. Marcus sending coordinates. Found their River City command center, his message read. Heavily fortified. Going to need help on this one. Before Sarah could respond, Lisa's voice crackled through their secure channel. We've got a problem in Carson City. Major problem. Talk to me, Sarah replied, switching to speaker mode. Remember how we thought Avalon was the top? He's not. Just intercepted communications about someone called the Director. Avalon was middle management. Phase 2? It's bigger than we imagined. The basement fell silent. Eddie, who'd been bringing down fresh coffee, nearly dropped the mugs. How much bigger? Sarah asked, though she already knew she wouldn't like the answer. International, Lisa replied. These cities aren't just staging areas for domestic operations. They're entry points. Once they control these strategic locations, they can move anything, or anyone, in and out of the country without oversight. Rodriguez's voice cut in on another channel. That explains the money transfers. They're not just converting to digital currency, they're moving it through shell companies in 12 different countries. Sarah studied the map, seeing the pattern with new eyes. Each marked city had access to major transportation routes, ports, highways, rail lines, perfect for international trafficking. They're not building a shadow government, she realized. They're building a shadow country. A warning alarm flashed on their main screen. Jenny rushed to check it. Multiple vehicles entering Pine Ridge, high-end SUVs, diplomatic plates. The Director, Sarah said grimly, coming to oversee Phase 2 personally. Sarah, Marcus's voice was urgent through the comm. River City Police just stood down. Someone high up gave them orders to withdraw. We're on our own here. Same in Carson City, Lisa reported. Local authorities suddenly going blind and deaf. Sarah made a quick decision. Everyone pull back, regroup at secondary locations. They're not just accelerating, they're changing the game. But we can't just let them, Marcus began. We're not letting them do anything, Sarah cut him off. But we need to adapt. The Director coming to Pine Ridge changes everything. This is where it all started, and this is where it's going to end. Eddie spoke up from behind his coffee pot. The town will stand with you. After what happened at the airfield, people are ready to fight. No, Sarah said firmly. We've got 3 days until Phase 2 launches. If the Director is really coming here, we need to be smart. No public moves, no civilian involvement. Jenny pulled up satellite imagery showing the convoy entering town. They're heading to the old Marshall estate. Private, defensible, perfect view of the city. Sarah nodded. The Director wants to watch their masterpiece unfold. Everything they've planned, everything they've built, it all comes down to the next 3 days. So what's the play? Rodriguez asked. Sarah walked to the map, her mind already forming a plan. Marcus, secure what intel you can from River City, then get back here. Lisa, stay in Carson City but maintain deep cover. We need eyes on their preparation. Rodriguez, follow that money. Find out exactly what they're planning to bring into the country. And us? Jenny asked. We're going to give the director exactly what they expect. A city that looks defeated, compliant, ready to play its part in their operation. Sarah's eyes hardened. And then we're going to burn their shadow country to the ground. Eddie refilled coffee cups as Sarah outlined her plan. It was audacious, probably impossible, and definitely illegal. But watching her team's faces, he saw something he recognized from his own military days. The look of people who knew they were fighting for something bigger than themselves. The next 3 days would determine not just the fate of Pine Ridge, but the future of the country itself. And it all began with a simple confrontation at a bus station. Sometimes the biggest wars start with the smallest battles. The Marshall estate loomed over Pine Ridge like a fortress, its wrought iron gates now guarded by men in expensive suits with military bearing. Sarah watched through high-powered binoculars from Eddie's roof as another convoy arrived, this one carrying what looked like advanced communications equipment. Facial recognition just got a hit, Jenny reported through Sarah's earpiece. The director, Catherine Blackwood, former CIA Deputy Director of Operations, disappeared 5 years ago after being investigated for selling classified intelligence. Now we know how they built such a sophisticated operation, Sarah replied. She's not just running a criminal enterprise, she's using CIA methodologies. Marcus's voice crackled through their secure channel. River City's gone dark. They've activated some kind of signal jamming system. Same thing's happening in the other target cities. Sarah lowered her binoculars. They're testing their communications blackout. Once Phase 2 starts, they'll be able to isolate each city at will. Sarah, Lisa's voice was urgent. Just intercepted a partial message from Carson City. They're bringing in something called Project Oracle, some kind of surveillance system. Rodriguez cut in, cross-referencing with CIA databases. Project Oracle was a classified program, AI-driven predictive surveillance, combines facial recognition, financial tracking, and behavior analysis, perfect for maintaining control over multiple cities simultaneously. That's how they plan to run their shadow country, Sarah realized. Complete information dominance. They'll know everything happening in their territory, while the outside world sees nothing. The sun was setting over Pine Ridge, casting long shadows across the streets. From her vantage point, Sarah could see people hurrying home, shops closing early. The town could sense something coming. Time check, Sarah announced. Phase 2 launches in 48 hours. Where do we stand? Money Trail confirms massive weapons shipments arriving at all target locations, Rodriguez reported. Plus specialized equipment we can't identify. Local law enforcement is being systematically compromised, Jenny added. Chiefs replaced, patrols rerouted, evidence rooms emptied. And our resources? Sarah asked. Limited, Marcus replied grimly. We've got maybe 20 operators we can trust, spread across 5 cities. No official support, minimal equipment. Sarah watched another convoy enter the Marshall estate. Then we go with Plan B. Eddie? Ready, the old diner owner replied. Veterans Network is standing by. Quiet like you said, but ready. Lisa, what's the status of their security at the estate? 3 layers, Lisa reported. Outer perimeter is private military contractors. Inner ring is former special forces. The director's personal security is ex-CIA hand-picked, plus automated surveillance and countermeasures. Sarah processed the information. And Project Oracle? Central control node has to be at the estate, Rodriguez said. They're building a hardened server room as we speak. Once it's online, it controls their entire network. That's our target, Sarah decided. We let Phase 2 start, let them activate their system. Then we take down Oracle. Without it, their whole network falls apart. One problem, Jenny interjected. Estate's a fortress. Even if we could get past the security, Oracle's probably got fail-safes. Kill it here. It probably activates backup servers in other cities. Sarah smiled grimly. That's why we're not going to kill it. We're going to turn it against them. She outlined her plan quickly. It was risky, dependent on precise timing and perfect execution. but they were out of options and out of time. "Questions?" she asked when she finished. "Just one," Marcus replied. "How do we get inside?" "Leave that to me," Sarah said, watching a familiar black sedan approach the estate gates. "Looks like Mayor Collins is still useful after all." The gates opened for the mayor's car, and Sarah caught a glimpse of Catherine Blackwood herself, the director, stepping out onto the mansion's balcony. Even from this distance, her authority was obvious. This was a woman used to controlling empires from the shadows. "All units maintain current positions," Sarah ordered. "No moves until my signal. Let them think they've won." She took one last look at Pine Ridge spread out below her. In less than 48 hours, this quiet town would become ground zero for either the largest criminal takeover in history or its most spectacular failure. And it all depended on one former soldier who refused to back down when bikers picked the wrong fight at a bus station. Mayor Collins fidgeted in his Mercedes as it approached the Marshall estate gates for the second time that night. Sarah lay hidden in the trunk, her mind focused on the timing ahead. Getting caught now meant more than just mission failure. It meant watching helplessly as Phase 2 transformed America forever. "Relax, Richard," she whispered through his concealed earpiece. "Just like we practiced. You're here to give the director an update on local preparations." The guard at the gate was thorough, but he was looking for obvious threats. No one expected the terrified mayor to be smuggling in the very person who'd started this war. Inside the estate grounds, Sarah counted silently as Collins drove to the designated spot. The trunk popped open precisely on schedule, and she rolled out into the shadows of carefully maintained hedges. Above her, Project Oracle's servers hummed behind bulletproof windows. "I'm in," she breathed into her comm. "Jenny?" "CCTV loop is active," Jenny confirmed from their command center. "You've got 4 minutes before their security scan catches it." Sarah moved like a shadow through the grounds, her military training making her nearly invisible in the darkness. The director's security was good, former Special Forces operators patrolling in precise patterns. But Sarah had studied those patterns for hours. She reached the service entrance exactly as Marcus created his diversion on the east side of the estate. Guards rushed to investigate the apparent breach, leaving her path clear. 30 seconds, Jenny warned. Sarah placed the small device Rodriguez had prepared on the door's electronic lock. It blinked once and the door clicked open. The interior of the Marshall estate had been transformed into a high-tech command center. Screens covered the walls, showing feeds from all their target cities. Sarah's breath caught as she saw the scale of what they were planning. "My God," she whispered. "Lisa, are you seeing this?" "Recording everything," Lisa confirmed through the comm. "They're not just taking cities. They're creating a complete parallel infrastructure. Banking, communications, security. A nation within the nation," Rodriguez added. "Once it's active, they'll have more real power than any government." Sarah made her way toward the server room, keeping to blind spots in the security coverage. She could hear voices ahead. The director was holding court in the main hall. "Phase 2 begins in exactly 12 hours, Catherine Blackwood's voice carried through the door. "Project Oracle will activate simultaneously across all primary nodes. By the time anyone realizes what's happening, we'll be too entrenched to stop." Sarah reached the server room's outer door. "Jenny, I need that access code." "Working on it," Jenny replied. "But Sarah, something's wrong. These power readings from Oracle, they're too high for just surveillance systems." Before Sarah could respond, a calm voice spoke behind her. "Hello, Captain Winters. I've been expecting you." Sarah turned slowly. Catherine Blackwood stood in the hallway, flanked by guards. The former CIA director looked exactly like her file photos, elegant, composed, and absolutely lethal. "I must admit," Blackwood continued, "you've impressed me. Taking down Avalon, disrupting our operations. You've shown remarkable initiative." "Just doing my job," Sarah replied, mind racing through options. "Your job?" Blackwood smiled. "Your job was following orders in some forgotten war zone. This is revolution. Project Oracle isn't just a surveillance system, it's the future. Imagine a world without bureaucracy, without political interference, pure, efficient control." "Sounds more like tyranny," Sarah said. Civilization requires order, Blackwood stated. Something you understood once, serving your country. Now you can serve something greater. Sarah noticed the guard's shifting position, getting ready to move. You're offering me a job? I'm offering you a place in history. Phase 2 isn't just about taking control. It's about transformation. Oracle will reshape society itself. Every transaction, every communication, every movement, all guided by perfect algorithmic efficiency. And you in control of the algorithm. Blackwood's smile hardened. Someone has to be. The old world is dying, Captain. Democracy, freedom, they're luxuries we can no longer afford. Join us, help us build something better, or die right here. Sarah met the director's gaze. Interesting offer, but you forgot something important. Oh? And what's that? Sarah smiled. I didn't come alone. The lights went out. The darkness lasted only seconds before emergency lights kicked in, but it was enough. Sarah moved with practiced efficiency, disarming the nearest guard while Marcus's carefully timed explosion rocked the estate's east wing. Alarms blared as chaos erupted. Oracle's automated defenses are activating. Jenny's voice crackled through the comm. You've got 3 minutes before the system locks down completely. Sarah engaged the guards while Blackwood disappeared down the hallway, the director's combat training evident in her swift movements. The fight was intense. These weren't ordinary security, but elite operators. Sarah took a hard hit to her ribs but managed to disable both guards using their own momentum against them. Lisa, status, Sarah called, sprinting after Blackwood. Carson City team is in position, Lisa reported. Ready to upload the virus once you get us access. The estate had become a battleground. Marcus led his team through the east entrance, engaging the external security forces. Eddie's veterans, hidden in waiting, began their coordinated strikes on the estate's power infrastructure. Sarah caught up to Blackwood at Oracle's main server room. The director stood at a terminal, fingers flying over keys. You don't understand what you're destroying, Blackwood said without turning. Oracle isn't just a control system. It's salvation. The world is chaos, Captain. We're offering order. You're offering chains, Sarah replied, moving closer. And I've seen enough chains in war zones to last a lifetime. Blackwood spun suddenly, a hidden blade flashing. Sarah barely managed to dodge, the blade slicing her jacket. The two women squared off, both highly trained, both fighting for fundamentally different visions of the future. Jenny, how long? Sarah asked, blocking a series of precise strikes. 2 minutes until Oracle goes live. Once it's active, we lose our chance. The fight between Sarah and Blackwood was a deadly dance of military precision and CIA tradecraft. Blackwood fought with cold efficiency, while Sarah matched her with battlefield-tested instincts. You were one of our best analysts, Blackwood said between strikes. You saw the patterns, the collapse coming. Oracle can prevent that. By replacing freedom with algorithms? Sarah caught Blackwood's arm, but the director broke free with a counter she'd never seen before. That's not prevention. It's surrender. Throughout the estate, the battle raged. Rodriguez coordinated with Jenny to breach Oracle's defenses while Marcus's team pushed toward the server room. Eddie's veterans, proving that old soldiers never lose their skills, systematically disabled the estate's security measures. 1 minute, Jenny warned. Sarah finally saw her opening. Blackwood, despite her training, had one weakness. She fought to win rather than survive. When the director committed to a killing strike, Sarah used that moment of absolute commitment against her. A precise combination of moves, learned in countless combat zones, and suddenly the director was on her knees, arm locked behind her. It's over, Sarah said. No, Blackwood smiled through bloody lips. It's too late. Oracle is autonomous. Even I can't stop it now. The servers hummed louder, displays showing the system coming online across all target cities. Sarah could see the network forming, a digital web ready to entangle the entire nation. Jenny? Sarah called urgently. 50 seconds, we need direct access to the main terminal. Sarah handcuffed Blackwood to a support beam and rushed to the terminal. Lines of code scrolled past, the system preparing to activate. Lisa, start your upload, Sarah commanded, inserting Rodriguez's specialized drive into the terminal. Uploading now, Lisa confirmed. But Sarah, there's something else in the system. Some kind of hidden protocol. Blackwood laughed. Did you think I wouldn't have a contingency? Oracle isn't just going online. It's going to expose every secret, every lie, every hidden operation in its database. The chaos will force people to accept our new order. Jenny, can we stop it? Working on it. Wait, Sarah, you need to see this. The hidden protocol, it's not just exposing secrets. It's designed to crash the entire financial system. Stock markets, banks, everything. Complete reset, Blackwood said proudly. From the ashes of the old world. 20 seconds. Sarah made her decision. New plan. Jenny, trigger our virus. Lisa, Marcus, light up every target city. Eddie? Ready when you say, Captain. Execute Plan 0. Burn it all down. The next 20 seconds would determine the future of not just Pine Ridge, but the entire nation. And it all started with a simple choice at a bus station. The choice to stand up when others would have walked away. The Marshall Estates server room erupted in chaos as Sarah's team executed Plan 0. Jenny's virus hit Oracle's systems, while Lisa's teams in each target city launched simultaneous strikes on the syndicate's infrastructure. The screens around them flickered with data as two competing systems battled for control. It's working, Jenny reported. Oracle's trying to launch its protocol, but our virus is fragmenting its network. Each city is being isolated. Blackwood strained against her handcuffs. You fool. Without centralized control, the system will tear itself apart. Everything we built. That's the point, Sarah cut her off. Sometimes you have to break something to fix it. Eddie's veterans had taken control of the estate's perimeter. Marcus's team secured the internal sections, rounding up syndicate personnel. But the real battle was happening in cyberspace, as Oracle fought against its own dissolution. Sarah, Rodriguez's voice was urgent. The system's failing, but Blackwood was right about one thing. It's exposing everything. All the evidence, all the connections, every corrupt official, every dirty deal. Good, Sarah replied, watching the data scroll past. Let it burn. Sometimes the truth hurts before it heals. The next few minutes were a cascade of revelations. Oracle's dying breaths exposed the entire network. Politicians, judges, business leaders who'd supported the syndicate. But instead of causing chaos as Blackwood had planned, it became a cleansing fire. Pine Ridge Police reporting in, Jenny announced. They're arresting the corrupt officials. Same reports coming in from River City, Carson City, all the target locations. The people are taking their towns back. Sarah turned to Blackwood, who watched her life's work disintegrate. You wanted to control everything, make it all perfect and predictable, but you forgot something important about America. And what's that? Blackwood asked bitterly. Sometimes the strongest communities are built by people just standing up and saying enough. The estate's lights came back on as emergency systems stabilized. Through the windows, Sarah could see vehicles approaching. Real federal agents this time, drawn by the unmistakable evidence Oracle had exposed. Jenny, make sure every piece of data is secured. Rodriguez, coordinate with the feds. They'll need help understanding what they're dealing with. Lisa, Marcus, good work. Get your teams clear before the official response arrives. Eddie's voice came through one last time. Sarah, the town's waking up. People are coming out of their homes talking to each other. It's like they're not afraid anymore. Sarah smiled. That's because they're not, Eddie. Fear only works when people feel alone. Today, they remembered they're not. The sun was rising over Pine Ridge as federal agents swarmed the estate. Sarah watched from the balcony as Blackwood was led away, the director's perfect plan lying in ruins around her. The other arrests would take time. Corrupt officials, syndicate members, all the hidden players Oracle had exposed. But looking at her hometown in the morning light, Sarah knew the real victory wasn't about arrests or evidence. It was about a community remembering its strength. About people choosing to stand together against intimidation, whether it came from bikers in a bus station or algorithms in a server room. Jenny joined her on the balcony. So what happens now? Now? Sarah watched as life returned to Pine Ridge's streets. Now we help other towns stand up. Because there will always be people like Blackwood thinking they can control everything, and there will always need to be people willing to stop them. Just like you stopped those bikers at the bus station? Sometimes the smallest actions have the biggest consequences, Sarah replied. Sometimes all it takes is one person willing to say no when everyone else would say yes. As federal agents continued to process the scene, Sarah thought about the chain of events that had led here. A simple choice at a bus station had exposed a conspiracy that nearly reshaped the nation. But more importantly, it had reminded people of something essential. True power doesn't come from control or fear, but from communities standing together. Pine Ridge would recover, the other cities would rebuild, and somewhere, others like Blackwood would try again, thinking they could impose their perfect order on an imperfect world. But they would fail. Because as long as there were people willing to stand up, soldiers, veterans, ordinary citizens who remembered their strength, no system of control could ever truly win. Sometimes the greatest victories start with the smallest stands, and sometimes one person's courage can remind an entire nation what it means to be free.